Hello friends, how are you? What you're about to see is a recent talk that I did about the ego. The ego can be a very complicated topic, but in this video, I talk about a section from A Course in Miracles that's about how we underestimate the power of the ego. And I want you to really listen to this because there's a lot of good things in there, especially when I start answering the viewers' questions, okay? So thanks again for being here. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed, and if you want more of this content, I really would appreciate it. All right, enjoy the talk. All right, so if you have your Course in Miracles with you, you can turn to chapter 11, section 5, and it is paragraph 16. Chapter 11, section 5, paragraph 16. That's what we're going to work with today. Okay? So as usual, I will read a little bit, we'll talk a little bit, I'll explain a little bit more. All right? So this is going to be about the ego. And the ego is something that all of us, if you are ready to wake up from the dream state, as they say, wake up from the illusion, get real with your existence here at this time, then dealing with and looking at the ego is basically a must to see how the ego has been convincing you, the ego has been manipulating you, the ego has been walking you down the garden path, as they say. And so today I want to talk to you in this section about how the ego has great appeal. The ego has great appeal. And let me say this very quickly, is that the ego we're talking about in A Course in Miracles is a little different than the Freudian ego. That's a little different. The ego, from A Course in Miracles perspective, is the part of you that thinks without love. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. So all you have to think about the ego is the part of you that thinks without love. And that part of you is very, very convincing. And that part of you is a part of you that you created, that I created, when we decided that we were separate from God, source, and love. So if we created it, or we made it, we made it. That's an important distinction from A Course in Miracles point of view. We made the ego. We can also move beyond the ego. If you're not careful and you haven't been doing some inner work and looking at all these motivations of your particular ego, and if you're not really focused on what the heck's going on, why does that happen? Why do I think like that? Why am I self-sabotaging all the time? Then it's really important that you give some focus to the ego, right? All right, so let's read. Take a deep breath. Okay, so this is in a section called God or the Ego. The whole chapter is called God or the Ego, and this section in particular is called The Dynamics of the Ego. And I would really highly recommend you read the whole thing, but we're just going to go over a little bit. Okay, so this is paragraph 16. Here we go. Do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstrations to those who would listen. Let me say it again. Do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstrations to those who would listen. So, we have selective hearing. We have selective eyesight, right? And the ego, your ego, my ego, will co-opt your hearing, your perception, your eyesight, how you're perceiving everything. It will co-opt it, right? So what he's saying is a very, very strong warning right from the beginning of this section. Do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstrations to those who would listen. So the ego's demonstrations are the things that lead you down the garden path. An ego demonstration might be something like forsaking yourself, knowing that you can't stay in a relationship, knowing that this is not a good thing for you in a relationship, in a job, in doing something, and you know at the core of your being this is not good. And the ego will convince you to stay. This is just one small little demonstration. So all of us have forsaken ourselves by doing things, staying in things, saying things, demonstrating in our lives something that goes against our intuitive nature, right? That is just one area that the ego has a very appealing demonstration. Like, no, you can't. No, because if you leave, then you're going to be on the streets. If you do this, then people aren't going to like you. If you actually say how you really feel, you're never going to have any friends anymore. All of those things are the ego going, come over here, forget yourself, do not do that, do not do that. And inside, there's part of you that knows that that's wrong. So that's just one demonstration of how the egos appeal. Also, the ego will have, do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstration to those who would listen. When you are convinced that you will find your peace, you will find your happiness, you will find your connection with God through a job, through a relationship, through something else, through another person, through moving to another place. If I move there, then I will be happy. If I get married to that person, then I will be happy. If I'm successful in my job, I will be happy. That is how the ego, there's nothing wrong with having a great relationship or having a great job or moving to a beautiful place. Do you understand? But the ego is going to make it what's called a special relationship. And that special relationship says, unconsciously or very consciously, if you finally get the thing that you think that you want, you will finally be happy. You will be peaceful. When that is not the truth. That is not the truth. You find your connection with God, grace, and love, and your inner peace first, and then the home is the icing on the cake. Then the career is the icing on the cake. Then the relationship is the icing on the cake, right? What if you are seeking peace through things like meditation, etc.? You're still seeking peace because you're still seeking peace. Then you have a special relationship with meditation. You can have a special relationship with A Course in Miracles, right? Yes, Laura. That's brutal. It's brutal. I'm going to say that. It's brutal. It's hard. Because you are using your spirituality to get somewhere where you already are. You're already here. God loves you. You are love. Life is supporting you. Meditation's not wrong. It's just that if you're trying to get something that you already have, then it doesn't make sense. This is not easy. Is that egoic? Wrong. Oh, I always if I gave up my whole desires and put others first, then my ego wasn't in charge. Christine, that's a very much of an ego move. Because you're trying to get something. You're trying to get something. Do you understand? If you're trying to get something, then you're immediately off. You're immediately off. You already have it. Yes, alone. Well, not alone. You're not alone because life, love, God is always there with you. You can't get away from that. So you're not alone. I find this has been true the past few months as I have been deepening my practice, yet getting frustrated that the world doesn't seem to have improved. The ego is saying, see, this doesn't work. Very good, Stacy. Very good. Because it's not about the world. The Course in Miracles has a very, very famous line that says, seek not to change the world, but seek to change your mind about the world. Very important. Thank you, Stacy. You're doing some good work there, if that's coming up. But don't we as humans need help, inspiration? Well, you already have it. You already have it. I'm not saying not to do that, Elaine and everyone, not to meditate or not to pray or whatever, but why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Because you, and I'll say this very, very with the most compassion in my heart. In the Course in Miracles, he says, why do you choose to fly with the wings of a sparrow when the wings of an eagle have been given you? In A Course in Miracles, Jesus would say, you can do everything I've ever done and more. But your problem is you have an undisciplined mind. You don't know who you are. Keep asking yourself who you are. And if you keep asking yourself who you are, you're going to find out you're not your ego, and you're not this little victim trying to find peace somewhere. That's not you. That's a character. Think meditation helps? Of course it does help clear your mind. Did I say it didn't? I didn't say it didn't. Recently perceived my ego is out to get me. In the Course in Miracles, it says your ego is out to kill you. And when I say that, it says the ego is out to make sure that you never know you're already good. Take a deep breath. Look me in the eye. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not a problem that needs to be solved. Your problem is you think you have a problem, and that's the problem. Do you get it? There's nothing wrong with you. Because if you really knew that there's nothing wrong with you, then you'd actually live your life and you'd be in joy. Take a deep breath. So we're to know this, the ego, but it's okay to seek help in stating peace. Everything is okay. Everything, nothing's wrong and nothing's right. That's a big part of this, because that's living in duality. I'm here, it's here. My peace is there somewhere. My success is there somewhere. My joy is there somewhere, and I'm over here. Duality, right? There's nothing wrong with meditation. There's nothing wrong with doing A Course in Miracles. There's nothing wrong with any of it. But if you don't get the whole point of doing this is that you don't need this, and I understand this is pretty advanced for a lot of people because it can be, but when you come to it, you start to go, what the fuck? This is ridiculous. Why don't I just allow myself to live in the flow of God? And then you do. It's not that you don't meditate anymore. If you like it, you don't have to meditate. You don't have to read A Course in Miracles. You don't have to pray. You don't have to do anything. Because you already are connected. You cannot not be connected with God, grace, and love. But we fall asleep. This is why it's called waking up. Use meditation as a tool to kill the ego. Why do you want to kill the ego? The ego is not real, so there's a perceptual issue there because the ego is not real, Jesse. So you can't kill the ego, and that you think that you can kill the ego will keep you in the constant rat race of trying to get rid of the ego. Elaine, you are not weak. Your ego. You're not weak. You're a perfect child, perfect reflection of the source of love. There's your work. We are made in the image of God. You're not weak. Your ego is strong. It's like there's a veil obscuring the divine. In a way, because we go to sleep, we don't see it. Do you see why the Course in Miracles is so great? We read one line and it's created a lot of this. Do you understand? Things like meditation are tools to remind us who we are. Yes. I'm going to read one more line. I'm going to read the whole thing now. Do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstrations to those who would listen. So you're listening. You're listening to the ego. Selective perception chooses its witnesses carefully, and its witnesses are consistent. The case for insanity is strong to the insane. Whew. Selective perception chooses its witnesses carefully, and its witnesses are consistent. You're always going to hear that voice. I'm weak. I'm bad. I need to get better. Something's wrong with me. This is a completely different voice than saying, I'm interested in growth. Wow, I really want to learn that thing. A very different voice than saying, if I don't learn that thing, something's wrong with me. I'm bad. Something's wrong. That's the selective hearing that the selective witnesses listen to. Elaine just kind of demonstrated that. Right? Not to get on you, Elaine. We all do it. We all do it. Selective perception chooses its witnesses carefully, and witnesses are consistent. So it's continually going to tell you you're not good enough, something's wrong with you, and you're going to keep going, yeah, okay, then maybe I should try this. Maybe I should do yoga to try to make myself feel better. Maybe I should do crystals. Maybe I should do the Course in Miracles. Maybe I should become a Christian. Maybe I should become an atheist. Because it's going to consistently tell you, if you have those ears to hear and you're listening through the ego's ears, it's going to always tell you the same thing. Now, the next line is very intense. The case for insanity is strong to the insane. When he says insane, he means when you're still asleep. So it's very easy, the case, to be like, oh, if I just get successful, if I finish the Course in Miracles, if I get a better job, if I lose that 10 pounds, that's insane. I've said it here before, and I will say it again, always. The line from Lily Tomlin that says, it doesn't matter if you win the rat race because you're still a rat. The whole point is to get out of the rat race and realize that you're not a rat.